Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday virtual classes of the BYU Family History Library in Provo, Utah. Our presenter this afternoon in our final class is Nancy Busby, and she'll be doing their fourth part in her beginning Ancestry series. And this time, it'll be dealing with the topic of getting to know Ancestry DNA. Nancy has spent many years in researching and teaching genealogy and family history. We appreciate her greatly for preparing today's class, and we'll be very interested to hear about this topic. So now I'll turn the time over to Nancy.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Glad you can make it. Today I'm going to be going over beginning ancestry, getting to know Ancestry DNA Test navigation through the Ancestry website. So this is definitely a class for beginners, kind of learning to navigate your way around through Ancestry. If you want to download a copy of my PowerPoint slides, those are available on my website. I put a link in the chat, but it's here on the screen also, nancybusbyfamilyhistory.com/ancestry. So if you want to see any past classes I've done or this one, you can go ahead and go there. So just a couple of housekeeping overviews on DNA. First, I want to just kind of let you know where I am with my experience with DNA. I've had a DNA test. I have found some cousin relations overseas and here in the United States through my DNA tests on Ancestry. And I have had a cousin, I was talking about this before class started, but I've had a cousin do a Y-DNA test through another program and was able to figure out who on that line we are and are not related to. So I have to be honest, my experience with DNA is probably not a lot more than yours if you're a beginner, but I have spent quite a bit of time kind of delving into the Ancestry website to find out what's there. And so this class is really to kind of whet your appetite. Maybe you haven't gotten a DNA test and you're wondering if you should. This gives you an idea and a really good overview of what is going to be available to you out there. So if you've gotten a DNA test and you're feeling a little overwhelmed by everything that's out there and what to do with it, hopefully this kind of will get you going with it and motivated to look into some more advanced classes with DNA also. So some reasons why people might want to get a DNA test is your family lore true? Are you descended from the ancestry that people in your family say? Maybe you want to know who your biological family is. A lot of people will take DNA tests so they can find their biological family if they've been adopted. Others are interested in finding out more about what their ethnicity is. One thing to keep in mind, if you have siblings or other family members who take DNA tests, they're not going to have the exact same percentages as you. And this is because when we're born and we're being formed, we've got half of our fathers and half of our mothers, and the combination of DNA that comes from each of them is going to vary between siblings. So it's just kind of a basic explanation why I've heard people question that and wonder what's going on with that. So just kind of a basic explanation as to why that would be. And I would recommend the further back that you can test, the better. And what I mean by that is if you have grandparents or great-grandparents who are living, go ahead and have them do a DNA test also, because that's going to give you an exact, not exact. I would say DNA is not 100% exact, but it's going to give you a more accurate 50-50 of what their parents were, where by the time it gets down to you, you're a generation or two after that. And so your DNA is a combination of what your grandparents or great-grandparents might be. And it's hard to know exactly which portions come from which parent. So anyway, I just think that's helpful. If you're looking at having other people in your family do a test. And also DNA can always kind of offer a clue if you're on the right track with your research. So in Ancestry, to get the most out of your DNA test, be sure to link your test to one of your trees in Ancestry. So if you have multiple trees, you need to connect your DNA test to one of those trees. All right, this chart hopefully can be helpful for those of you who might not have seen it. It's from the National Genealogical Society. It just gives a family relationship chart. When you get a DNA test and you go to the website to see who your cousin relations are, it's going to give you estimates on some of these relatives. So this chart can help you kind of start interpreting, well, what does that mean that somebody's my second or third or fourth cousin? So if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can. And again, it's in my PowerPoint slide deck, the PDFs that you can download as well and have access to. One of the terminology, kind of the language of DNA that you'll come across as you start looking into your DNA is a centimorgan. And a centimorgan is a basic unit of measurement, of genetic measurement that is used to describe the DNA that they are evaluating. So your DNA comes in different segments and different lengths, and these centimorgans are going to be used to help kind of evaluate what your potential relationship is to someone who you have a DNA match with. So this is another chart that I downloaded from familysearch.org. And this chart is going to give a description of what those centimorgan, like how many centimorgans you might share with a certain type of relation, whether it's parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, cousins, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're looking at your chart and it's giving you an estimate of how many centimorgans and predicting what your relationship might be, this is the type of chart that's going to, where that type of information comes from. Okay, so when you get your DNA, it's going to be the most useful and helpful for you to compare those results with your tree. If you just look at your DNA and it tells you your ethnicity, and that's all you want to know, and that's the end of it for you, that really is all you're going to get out of it. The best thing to do is to compare it to your tree. If your DNA says that your ancestry comes from Sweden, and you look at your tree and you can see that on your grandmother's side of the family, they came from that part of the world, that helps you understand where your common ancestors and relations are going to be when you compare matches on your DNA. So as you compare your DNA results with your tree, it's going to give you the best options. So getting into taking a look at the Ancestry website. So across the menus across the top, you'll see DNA, and the pull down gives you several different options, and we will go through those today. First one is your DNA results summary. You can also get there by going to your person profile to see the DNA summary. So once you click on DNA summary, it's going to take you to this preview page. And if for any reason your DNA test isn't currently linked with one of your trees, just click on settings up in the right-hand corner, and that is going to walk you through some options to select which tree you want to link it to. When you click on that, you'll see this page open, and you can see here on this image that my DNA is linked to a specific tree. And if you scroll down on the settings page, this is where you can also decide if you want to participate in any of the research that Ancestry is doing through the DNA that they offer or not. You can also turn on and off different visibility and sharing settings for your DNA, and that will control what others out there in Ancestry, other Ancestry members can or cannot see. This is also where you can download your DNA test. So if you want to download your DNA, the reasons why you might do that is it basically is going to create a file that downloads onto your computer that you can then upload to other websites. So once you've purchased your DNA through Ancestry, you do have the option to be able to download that and upload it to other sites. Some examples of sites that I've uploaded my DNA to and built trees in are GEDmatch, MyHeritage DNA, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA. And there are probably others out there, but those are four or five other companies that I also have taken the DNA tests that I got on Ancestry and uploaded them there. The reason I did that is because different people have joined different sites, and so that just broadens my opportunity to make connections through DNA lines. Also, here in the settings, you can delete your DNA test. Just keep in mind that once you delete it, it has been deleted from the website permanently, and that would be another reason to download your DNA data that you paid for. So you still have a copy of that. Okay, when scrolling back up to the top of that page, if you can click the back button to get back to the main page, the main Ancestry DNA page. And now we'll take a look at the DNA story. So this is the second item down on your pull-down menu, and you can also get there by clicking from the results summary page. It's got the DNA story there on the left. You can click on Discover Your DNA Story, or if you click on the pull-down, it takes you directly there also. Once you click on that, it's going to take you to a map that kind of zooms in on the general area of ethnicity that you have. And here is an example of mine. And this panel over to the right, you can scroll up and down on this page when you're taking a look at your own and explore. You can zoom in and out on this map if you have other, more diverse DNA than I do, which a lot of people do. But I will just walk you through a couple of things that you can take a look at as you look at your DNA and find out what you can learn from your DNA. So over here on the right, I have highlighted. So it's showing that I'm 25% from Scotland, and then it has a more locale area, the Scottish Central Lowlands. So if I click on that, it's going to zoom in on what that area entails and what that means. And keep in mind that my DNA is tied to my tree, and so it is also can populate these maps with the people who are on your tree and where they're from. So as you scroll down through this, over here on the right, just pay attention kind of in the middle right of the map. It's got some different century or part century markers. And as you scroll down, it's going to walk you through what is happening through those centuries with migration and different things. And then one of the things you can find as you scroll down is it's going to call out specific people on your tree that you might have an association with and where you say they're from in that country. And when you zoom in, these little map markers are going to show specific people, and you can click on them over here on the right, or you can click on the person specifically on the map, and then it's kind of highlighting the time frame that they're living in that area here on the right. So when I click on a specific person, it's going to open up this panel on the right that has their name, and it shows how I'm related. It's pulling that information from my tree. And then I can go to their profile by clicking on View Profile. Okay. Coming back to the top of the main DNA story page. If I scroll down from here, another thing that you can see is your ethnicity inheritance. Ancestry DNA, about maybe in the last couple of years, don't remember exactly when, but they started being able to break down your DNA into the two halves. Now, they don't know which part of your DNA is maternal or paternal, but you can go in help identify that based on what you know about your family. So if you click on View Breakdown from here, it is going to show the totals for me. And here are the different parts of the world, and they're color-coded that run along underneath these little circles. And I have identified what the maternal and paternal side is. If you open up your test and you go to this part and it doesn't have that identified yet, you can click on Edit Parents. And then from there, you can identify which side of your family. Now, I will admit that for mine, it was relatively easy because the Wales part of my DNA, I know only comes from my father. And Wales only shows up on my paternal side of my family. And that was kind of the clue that I used to know how to identify. You might have to look pretty deep into your tree, depending on how diverse or different your parents are or how similar they are. Mine are quite similar, except for that one. So that made it pretty easy for me to identify and input the information. This is my parental side. This is my maternal side. Another thing you can do is you can share your comparison of your DNA between your maternal and paternal side with somebody else. So if you click on share, you can email that to someone. You can share it on social media, whatever suits you. It will give you the different options when you click on that. Over on the right-hand side, as you scroll down, there is an option to take a look at match splits by parent. This is relatively new. And then below that is Chromosome Painter. So we'll take a look at those two options and kind of walk through what you'll see if you take a look at those. The Chromosome Painter, if you scroll back to the top of this comparison between maternal and paternal sides, is one of the tabs on the right. So you can just click on that. And it is going to open up this window that shows you your DNA inheritance. So it helps to identify or try to figure out which side of your DNA is maternal and paternal, if you're able to do that. So I'm going to pull over here my Ancestry account so I can kind of just show you a few things that you can do. So as you scroll down, you can see the 22 strands of DNA. And right now I have it toggled on to all. And if I click on paternal, everything that was on that left side of that half circle that I identified as paternal is now showing up as that top bar. So that is showing, remember the color coding has to do with the different countries. I can turn on or off any of those countries and just hone in on specific countries and which strands of DNA they're more prominent on. And I think that if you go to someone who is more intermediate to expert in DNA, they can help you understand more about exactly what those different strands, specific strands of DNA mean. Or I can just hone in on my maternal side and take a look at those. And just click all if I want to see all of them. And they do have a few frequently asked questions here at the bottom. So if you're trying to kind of dive into a little more about this, I recommend that you click on these and read more about what the chromosomes are and kind of give you a jumping off point for learning more about that. And of course, they also give you the option to share from here as well. All right, now I want to take a look at the DNA matches that you can see. In your pull-down menu, it's the third item down. You can also click on it from your summary page for DNA, clicking on View All DNA Matches. Okay, when I went there this week to look at things, just to kind of refresh what Ancestry has, and they do update things from time to time. As they accumulate more and more DNA tests, they're able to improve the evaluations that they have for the entire pool of DNA testing they've done. So from time to time, you will get updates and your ethnicity may shift slightly. Keep in mind what they're doing really is comparing your DNA to a whole pool of people. finding those common markers and making their evaluations and predictions on where you're from based on those things. So that is why those can change. So anyway, now when you click on that, it's going to take you to this by parent, and this is a beta. If for some reason that doesn't show up when you click on your personal account, it could be that I have, in my personal settings, profile settings, I've selected to be part of any beta testing that they come up with. So if you don't see it, it might be because you haven't toggled that option on in your settings. So this is looking at my DNA matches by parent. So it's going to give me names from my tree, matches that coincide with the DNA from my paternal side. And as you scroll down, it's got the matches from your maternal, and then there are also some that are unknown. There's maybe not enough information on a more distant person, more distant cousin relation that can tell them which side of the family they might be from. At least not immediately through the DNA test. That requires some visiting between you and that person to kind of try to figure out what your common ancestor might be. If you click on the tab that says all matches, that is going to show all of the matches. And they have these different filters that you can view these matches based on. So you can toggle on to see all that you've not viewed. You can click on to only see people who there is a common ancestor identified. Now that is going to mean people who have a shared tree on Ancestry. So common ancestors can be found as it looks at your DNA and says, oh, here's a relationship. And then you both have trees, and here's a person who has the same name, the same birth, death information. So it's going to find those common ancestors by reading the information that is on each of your trees. You can type notes based on DNA, people you might have contacted, or any information that you find out based on the DNA. You can look at trees by shared DNA, by DNA groups, or you can just click on search and look for a specific person. And there are some sorting options too. So this is something that will be personalized to you that you'll want to explore. If you click on by ancestor, this is going to take you to a page that is referred to as Throughlines. And I'm going to go more into Throughlines and how to get to this and kind of walk you through some examples of that here a little bit later in the presentation. But just know that this is one way to get there. And if you click on by location, it is going to highlight where in the world people who share DNA matches are from. So you can see by this map, I've got relatives here in the United States and Canada and the British Isles and Germany and Australia, New Zealand. Anyway, it's kind of a fun thing to explore. And the numbers that you see in those dots, you can zoom in and out. The closer you zoom in, then you can see more about the specific people in those areas, and eventually click on those little dots to take a look at what's there. So if you zoom in on the map, I've zoomed in here on the United Kingdom and Ireland. And then I'm going to zoom in a little tighter. And I select a person who is from a county that I've been doing research in. I'm like, oh, how is this person related? Can they maybe help me with my research? So when I click on one of these little map tags, it's going to bring up a preview of this person, and I have the option to just go back to all matches, or I can click on that person. When I click on the person, it's going to give a more detailed breakdown comparing you with them. So it shows what our estimated relationship is, 4th to 6th cousins, how many centimorgans we share, and that it exists on one segment. And the first page that brings you to is looking at their tree. So over here on the left, you're going to see who your common ancestor is if it exists between your two trees. And that is going to kind of zoom in really quickly for me to tell me who we both descend from. And it shows their tree, which they have shared publicly. The next tab over is comparing the ethnicity. So I've got myself here on the left and this individual is on the right. So I can see where we might share in our DNA. And then if you click on shared matches, this is going to bring up other people who have DNA in common with both of you. So this is not going to be every person you have a match with, but it only pulls together the people who have common ancestors or are considered a DNA match between you and that individual. You can also connect to their tree. There's a tab here to message them if you want to message the person. And if you want to edit the relationship, right now it's just giving me an estimate, 4th to 6th cousins. Since we have a common ancestor, I could click on edit relationship as I look and compare their tree to mine, and I could determine exactly what we are. Maybe we are 5th cousins twice removed. So you can edit the relationship by telling it more specifically what your relationship is. And this helps you as you're looking at these matches on your tree, because now that estimate is going to show up as the specific relationship that you change it to. Okay, going back to Throughlines. Throughlines is available on the pull down. You can click on Throughlines and it takes you back to the same DNA match page that has these tabs going across the top in the gray. So when you're on this, when you get to this page, if you click on the By Ancestor tab, if you click on the By Ancestor tab, it's going to be the same thing as any of the different ways you can get to a through match. So what exactly is a through match? I am going to kind of walk you through a little bit of what you will find there and how you might be able to use that. This is showing me my matches by ancestor. So it's going to start with the generation closest to you and walk you through your parents, grandparents, second great grandparents. Honestly, this is one of my favorite things in DNA, because I might spend several months researching one specific line. And I think it's awesome to be able to jump right to that ancestor, say, okay, I want to see all the DNA matches for that person. Or this is also a really awesome way to explore, well, how many matches do I have out there that are also associated with, these specific people? Maybe I go to someone who I don't know a lot about on my tree, see how many matches there are. And that gives me opportunities to connect and collaborate with those specific people that I might not otherwise even have met or known. So as you go through here, when you hover over the person's page, you can see it is going to give you a little preview of how many DNA matches are available for that person. And if there are any new ones, maybe you come back after a few months, and go back to the same person and go, oh, there's one new match. Let's go see who that is. So clicking on the specific ancestor is going to take you to this page, which shows you all of the DNA matches. And I'm going to pull this to the side because we're going to come back to that in just a minute. I also want to show you another way that you can get to these through lines, and you can do that from your tree view. When I'm in this pedigree chart view, each person, if they have any DNA matches, is going to have this little blue dot. Now, in your settings, you have the option to turn that on or off. So if you don't see any and you have DNA and it's associated with your tree, go into your settings and make sure you have that toggled on if you want to utilize that through this view. But anyway, you can click on this person and it's going to bring up the profile summary card. And at the bottom are the through lines. And when you click on that, it takes you to view through lines for this specific ancestor.
We have a question while you're on Throughlines.
Ah, okay. Yes, I see it. I'm in my DNA matches on Throughlines, but it is pulling my husband's family. How come? There could be a variety of reasons. The first thing that comes to mind is that it's possible that your husband's DNA is associated with your account and then associated with your tree specifically. So to look more into it, I think the best recommendation is to do a Zoom call where you can share your screen with me or possibly another missionary at the BYU Family History Library. And I would be, or many of them would be happy to look at it with you and try to sort through that. So if you're able to do that, hop online on Zoom just to do a one-on-one with myself or another missionary. Definitely be glad to look at that with you. Because that is something I would for sure want some help figuring out. Thanks for your question, Sheldon. Okay, when you click on the Throughlines for a specific person, you're going to get this page, and it shows that individual here at the top of the tree. And because we're looking at the descendants and kind of drilling down through their descendancy to these DNA matches, it's going to show them here at the top, and then the tree kind of branches out below them. So it's going to show each of his children running across here and how many of the DNA matches that I have that are associated with those specific children. And you can also look at a list view. So if you don't want to see the tree view of those relations, you can look at a list view, and it basically lists all those individuals in the family line descended from, in this case, Jesse, and how many matches are off here to the right. And as you open those, then it will show each of those people. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my screen back over so that you can watch me navigate through some of this, so you can get an idea of what you can do. So right now I have up my second great grandfather, and from this view, I can click on one of his daughters. You can see he's still here on this list, but it highlights her now, and it shows each of her children and their children, and eventually it gets me down to these DNA matches. And then I can see exactly how that common ancestor goes through from these specific DNA matches. If I want to take a look at one of the other children, I just open up theirs and just keep clicking and drilling down. And you can always trace your way back to the individual on the same screen, right back to that second great grandfather I initially had opened. If I want to go back to him, I just click on his name, and I can get back to all these different DNA matches that way. I can also navigate left and right from her to her siblings. Here's my great grandfather. So if I want to get in touch with my second cousin Jill, I can click on this and send her a message. And then the list view, as I said, it's going to show the matches more in rows, and scroll down through these different people. It gives your estimated relationship, the centimorgans you share, how many segments they're across, what the prediction is based on their tree. They have a shared tree or not, and you can view relationship too. And that's going to take you to this, and tells me we're second cousins one time removed, and this is why. So this refers back to that chart that I showed way at the beginning to understand what does second cousin one time removed mean anyway. So, but they do a pretty good job of graphically showing that on these Throughlines. Okay, and of course, when you're on your Ancestry Summary, you can get to Throughlines through that page as well. So several different ways to get there. And make sure that you scroll down to see each direct line ancestor. And as I showed you in my live demo, you can just hover your mouse over them and it highlights how many matches are in common with that person. And just remember that little blue icon, whenever that's next to a person's name, that's going to take you to Throughlines, which are your DNA matches specific to that person. And these slides, I've kind of walked you through them, but they're to be a help if you download the PDF. So it walks through the stuff that I showed live in this video. Here's the list view. And now we'll take a look at comparing your DNA to an individual DNA match. So in this example, I'm going to click on this individual's name and it brings up this window and it shows my relationship to them. Our common ancestors are on the left, if there are any. And if they have a tree, it shows the people they have on their tree. And that's depends on if they have it public or not, if you're able to see that. And remember, you can always contact a person to ask them if they will share your tree with them. Some people want to have their trees be private in Ancestry and not just publicly accessed, but they're also willing to share their tree with other family members who are doing research or have common ancestry lines. So don't hesitate to reach out to a person and ask them. It doesn't hurt. They can choose to not respond or say no thank you, and there's no harm, no foul there. But if it's a line that you've really hit some dead ends on, and you have a real need to connect with someone, I'll always reach out to them through the ancestry messaging and see what happens. So as you scroll down, it's going to show you shared surnames that are in common on your family also. And then ancestor birth locations. As you scroll down, it's going to put on a map the people who are on their tree and where they're from. So you can see if you have any locality in common and not just a country, right? And remember, from this comparison between you and that person, this is where you can connect to their tree, you can message them, you can edit your relationship if you are able to determine exactly what your relationship is. And that can be also given to you in Throughlines if that person shows up on your Throughlines too. So you can take what you saw in Throughlines and edit the relationship here if you agree with how that tree comes together. So keep in mind, you are, all the other people in Ancestry are just like you. They're putting in the best they know and the best they have on their trees. So somebody might have something on their tree that you don't necessarily agree with. So don't feel like you have to edit your relationship to them to say what it looks like it is based on what they've put on their tree. Make sure you kind of vet that out and take a look at it carefully. All right, so there are 3 tabs here in the middle. So we were looking at the tree view. And in the middle here, you can also look at ethnicity. And this will compare you and this person side by side and show a map of where you share those areas. It shows you, and like me, for instance, in blue, what's shared is in green, and anything that isn't shared is in yellow. And I can also click on shared matches to see all the people who have done DNA who have matches in common with me and that individual. And same thing, you can scroll down and just explore all of those, reach out to them if you want. Here, I want to show you it's predicting a parent-child relationship. And it's asking me if I recognize this person. And I've blacked out their name, but yes, I recognize this person as my daughter. So I click, yes, I recognize this person who's done DNA. And it asked me, do you know which side of the family this person is on? And in the case of a child, I would say both sides, because she is descended from both sides of the DNA she comes from, right? Not just me, not just her dad, but it's both of us. So in this particular case, I would click both sides. But if it's if it's your cousin on your father's side of the family, say fathers or mothers, etc. So I'm going to select both sides. And then it asks me what my relationship is to her. And it says, we're predicting it's this. And it says, we're 100% sure she's your daughter. And I can say, yes, I agree with that, or no, I'm not sure. And in this case, I know that I am. So it just wants to confirm with me. And then I've identified her as my daughter. So that kind of walks you through what going through that process of editing a relationship with someone is like, and why you might want to do that. So now on this list, instead of saying close family, first cousin or whatever, it says specifically what they are. Here's my sister, here's my daughter. You can do that with any of your shared DNA matches. You can also create groups and add them to a group. So I might have a group of people from my great grandfather's side that I'm specifically adding to a group because we were collaborating together, or any variety of reasons that you might want to create group together DNA. from your matches. And you can also add notes about what you've learned about those DNA matches between you and that person. Okay, now I'm going to go over traits. Traits is another option. I have noticed that Ancestry has their autosomal DNA, which is the, looking at both sides of your parents with your 22 chromosomes. So that is one cost through Ancestry. If you want to add traits on as an option, it's an additional cost. This is something that might be grandfathered in if you already have DNA testing done. So you may or may not have this, but I think if you don't have it and you want to add it on, Ancestry will probably be happy to take your money and have you add that option on with them. But here's what it's about. So in the pull down, you can click on traits, and it is going to take you to a page that will tell you about traits. So this is going to tell you things like, if you have freckles, why is that? Do you think cilantro tastes like soap? You don't like it? Any number of reasons. It's going to give you a kind of a little breakdown of what your DNA, how it's impacted your different physical and characteristics of your traits. And everything about who you are and what you are and what you like the taste of or what you look like is going to be in here in your DNA. I'm noticing that there are a couple of questions, so let me pause for a second and see if there's any I can address. May you link your DNA to more than one tree? I believe the answer to that is no. They make you pick which tree. Now you can switch between your trees, so you can have it be on one tree and take a look at matches, and then you can switch your link to another tree in the settings if you want to look at it comparing more than one tree. That would be the way to do that. So as you inherit your DNA from each of your parents, getting half from one, half from the other, but you don't have every trait in common. My dad had black hair. None of his children have black hair. But, some of them have extremely straight hair like him, and some of us have very curly hair like my mom. So DNA is a very interesting thing when you get into it. And sometimes how you look and your likes and dislikes can also be impacted by your environment. So your genes are going to have a huge impact, but your environment, it can also come into play there. And remember, your genotype is in your DNA. So I got these little images from Ancestry. Scientists have found some markers are associated with specific traits like red hair and a certain specific marker in your genotype. That helps them determine these kinds of things. So it's definitely based on science, if you're wondering. Okay, so when you click on traits, it's going to take you to this page, and I'll draw your attention over to the right. You can learn more about this by taking a tour guided by Ancestry if you'd like. You can compare your traits with friends, just kind of fun thing to do. When you click on that, it's going to take you to this page where you can invite a friend who is also taking a DNA test to compare and share with each other. Do you both have brown eyes? Do you both have, dislike cilantro? What things do you have in common on your genes besides just being friends and liking the same activities? You can also click on Around the World to find out more information about a specific trait that you are curious about. So when you click on that, it's going to ask you to select a trait, and you can scroll through these different traits and see which ones you want to find out more about. So if you click on sun sneezing, it's going to ask you, do you sneeze after being exposed to bright light in the sun? And you say what you know about yourself, yes or no, or not sure. In my case, I would say no. And then it's going to open up this information page about that specific trait that people in the world have. And where is sun sneezing more common? Yes, apparently when some people look at the sun, or are exposed to the sun, they it makes them sneeze. I don't have that. So anyway, you can learn more about where that's more common in the world and scroll around on the map and scroll up and down, learn all about that specific trait. And you can do this with any of them. They have traits that are available to learn about nutrients and fitness. And I learned that I come by it naturally that I don't love to run long distances. That is actually a DNA trait that's built into me, which I didn't know until I looked at these things. You can look at your sensory tendencies and things about your appearance, your birth weight. Do you have a cleft chin or not? Are your earlobes attached or detached? All kinds of things. Here's another example. If I click on freckles, because I have freckles, I learned that freckles are found in Ireland, and I know that Ireland is in my DNA. And it says 4% of Ancestry members who have this region answer the same way I did. So not everyone in Ireland has freckles, popular to maybe some preconceived notions that people have. So anyway, you can find out all kinds of interesting facts about yourself and these different traits that people in the world have. All right, so let's say you've ordered a test and you've spit into the tube and you're ready to send it off. It's going to give you instructions on how to activate your test, but that can be found. You make sure you are logged into your account that you know how to log into. I can't stress that enough. I've had so many people come to me and say, I took my DNA test and I got the email that said I have my result, but when I log into my account, it's not there. Well, somewhere along the line, they created 2 accounts and their DNA got associated with the other account. They don't remember how to log in. We have to call Ancestry. We can sort it out if that happens to you, but try to make sure you associate it, you activate your test through your account that you know how to get into. So click on Activate a Test, and it's going to ask you if you want to continue. Signed in as myself, I would say yes, next. And it will walk you through entering the barcode information from the test you're sending in. And if you want to buy another test for yourself or someone else, just click on Buy Another Test, and it will ask you which test you want to buy. And there is also the Activate a Test button here as well. So this is where it shows you DNA plus trace or just the DNA. And this was a screenshot that I grabbed this morning, so I believe it's pretty accurate as of today. Thanks for hanging out with me for the last hour and learning a little more about navigating your way through the DNA test and what kinds of things you can discover out there in Ancestry. And appreciate you all joining me. And that is part 4 of my beginner series that I present here. And just want you to know, if you have any questions, want to reach out to me, you're welcome to. I do have an email that I post out there publicly. You're welcome to email me if you have questions or want to set up a Zoom meeting so I can take a look at what you're looking at, see if I can help you out or not. And again, this presentation is available on my website as well, nancybusbyfamilyhistory.com.